All right, minimum wages, another classic issue in business ethics, this time focusing on employment ethics, and then more narrowly the question about setting appropriate prices for wages. What counts as a fair or appropriate or good price for labor? As with any business ethics case, it's controversial. There's at least two sides to the debate. So let's plunge in. We'll start to develop the first side of the case. So we'll call this position one. And this position will say, well, if we're going to talk about wages, we should put the relationship between employers and employees in a broader context. Obviously, we do identify the key parties involved. We have an employer and we have an employee or potential employee. In this case, it's a business transaction. The employer is the buyer. He or she is purchasing labor or other skills and services from employees. And in this case, the employee is the seller, selling labor skills, knowledge, and so forth, other values. All right, so how should we think about employers and employees? Well, by the time we are adults, this position says we are and should see ourselves and expect others to see us as self-responsible agents. I'm a grown-up person. Part of being a grown-up is making my own way in the world, and that includes the business part of my life. I, of course, can earn a living by going entrepreneurial and starting my own business. But if I decide not to go that route, say I choose to become an employee, to put it negatively, no one owes me a living. If I want someone to give me a job, then it is my responsibility to make myself attractive enough so that other people will want to hire me and give me money, presumably. And the same holds for the other side of the equation. If I'm in a business and I want to become an employer, or I am an employer already and my business is doing well and I want to expand, well, again, to put it negatively, nobody has to work for me to make my business flourish. If I want to attract people to come to work for me, it's my responsibility to make my workplace, to make my business attractive enough so that people will want to come to work for me. So we have two self-responsible agents who will be treated as adults. Neither initially owes each other anything, but employers have something that employees want, employees have something that employers want. So the idea then is that they seek each other out, they negotiate with each other, and they work out a trade. The employer is going to offer money and perhaps other benefits to the employee. The employee is going to offer labor and perhaps other skills to the employer. And this trade is one that they both voluntarily enter into. Nobody has to enter into the agreement if they don't like the terms of the trade that are being offered. They go their separate ways. But assuming that they are both agreeable to the terms, they voluntarily enter into the agreement, and both of them treat it as a relationship that is mutually beneficial. Or to use the economist's term, it is a win-win transaction. Now, if I'm the employee, right, I might think, gee, this is not necessarily the ideal job for me, but if I voluntarily accept to enter into this partnership, then given all of the alternatives that are available to me, I am judging myself as being better off having this job than not having this job. And so it is a benefit to me to have that job. Same thing holds for the other side of the transaction, the employer. I might not hire someone who I think is the ideal employee, whom I would like to have working for me. But all things considered, given the options available to me, I make the judgment that I am better off if I have this person working for me than not having this person working for me. So, employment is a mutually beneficial, voluntarily entered into trade by self-responsible adults. Now, we have two parties so far. We do know that when we get to minimum wages are a mandated price floor, right, or it's a piece of legislation governments enact to control the price of labor at the bottom end of the scale. So we do have to ask how this side will think about government and what government's role should be with respect to employers and employees. This position will say that if we are ethically treating people as self-responsible agents who voluntarily enter into agreements, right, that they have the liberty to do so, we should see the government as in the position, right, of protecting rights. And in this case here, the key rights that are involved are liberty rights. I can enter into relationships with whomever I wish, as long as that person is also equally willing to enter into the relationship with me. And as long as both parties are voluntarily entering into that arrangement, no one's rights are being violated. If the job of the government is to protect people's rights, then in this case, the government should be, as the French would put it, right, laissez-faire, right? Or in translation, right, hands off, or let them do, right, what they will. So what we then do is we leave it up to the free market. There's a market for labor. We have people who want to sell their labor. There are people who want to purchase their labor. That's the market. As long as the market is conducted in a free manner, that is to say, people using their choice and voluntarily entering into transactions, there's no position for government to get involved. What's the appropriate price for labor? Well, there's no one price. Employees have different requirements, needs, interests, and the same holds for employers. And the way we discover what the appropriate price for any given unit of labor is through voluntary negotiation and trade in the free market. So whatever employers and employees work out and agree to, that's the right price for that particular transaction.